Good morning, everyone, and welcome and thank you for being part of WorkSafe's webinar, Lessons Learnt from Leaders During COVID-19. My name is Kate Maheris. I am a Director of Regional Operations in Health and Safety here at WorkSafe Victoria, and I'll be your host for this morning's webinar. While this year Health and Safety Month is virtual for us here at WorkSafe, we still have the same aims of Health and Safety Month, and that is to keep you up to date with all the practical information and insights from industry leaders. This year's theme is Navigating Through COVID-19. Our session today involves 3 speakers that will be joining me in a conversation this morning, and each of these chief executives of their respective organisations are also leaders and part of the Victorian Workplace Mental Health and Wellbeing Collaboration. Our speakers will be talking to us today about leadership and mental health. I'll have the pleasure now of introducing each of them. So Margot Lydon is the Chief Executive Officer at Superfriend. Good morning, Margot.
Good morning. Lovely to be with you this morning, Kate.
Thank you. Margot has worked in mental health and suicide prevention for 20 years and has been the Chief Executive Officer of Superfriend for 10 years. She has extensive experience in leadership, business growth, and strategic partnerships and systems change. If you joined us for our first webinar today, you will have already met Colin Radford, who is the Chief Executive at WorkSafe Victoria. Good morning again, Colin.
Great to see you again, Kate. Thanks for having me.
His goal as both the Workplace Health and Safety Regulator and manager of the Workers' Compensation Scheme here in Victoria is to reduce the incidence of workplace injury and illness and to support Victorian employers, particularly during these turbulent times. And lastly, Sandra Di Meo is the Chief Executive Officer at Vic Health. Good morning, Sandro.
Morning.
Sandro is a medical doctor and globally renowned public health expert and advocate. He previously worked for the World Health Organization and was the CEO of the EAT Foundation. Welcome again to our panelists this morning. So as I mentioned, we've structured this as a bit of a conversation between ourselves and that we're going to walk through the work of the collaboration, which I've mentioned, their lessons around leadership, and also the mental health practices they've developed that will take themselves and their 3 organisations into the future. If there is information that you're looking for about the collaboration or anything that comes up today, you can always call our advisory line or visit our website for further information. So just some housekeeping matters before we get right into it. If you'd like to join us on social media and be part of the conversation during Health and Safety Month, just use the hashtag HSMonth. And just remember again, if there's any information regarding the resources you hear about today that you'd like to learn more about, you can call advisory or visit our website. So welcome again to everybody watching this morning. Let's get straight into it. So let's start at the very beginning by asking, what is the Victorian Mental Health Workplace Mental Wellbeing Collaboration and how it came about? Margot, you were one of the founding chief executive officers, I understand, of the collaboration. Can you perhaps respond to the question that I've asked?
Certainly. It's an incredible collaboration, and I'm immensely proud of the work that we've achieved over the last 6 or 7 years. I guess the collaboration came about because we recognised that there was a gap in really helping Victorian workplaces and particularly leaders in workplaces really understand and be able to be supportive and bring forward some of the positivity in leadership. So the focus of the collaboration over the last number of years has been really elevating the conversation, bringing practical guidance, case stories, some fantastic examples of what Victorian workplaces have been doing to support their people, particularly through the lens of positive leadership. I think the integrated approach has been something that has been really well talked about across numerous different platforms, and this is, the prevention of harm, acting if somebody is unwell, but also promoting the positive. And the collaboration really focuses in on that last segment, the promotion promotion of the positive. And it is such a great way to not only help people be their best selves and come to work and do great work, but there is absolutely productivity and profitability and business gains when you actually have a thriving workplace. I think this collaboration with, the power and the strength of Vic Health through their health promotion, WorkSafe Victoria, and the incredible work that they do every day in helping to really support workplaces and workers be as safe and as productive as they can be. And then the strengths of Superfriend as a national mental health and wellbeing workplace specialist organisation. The three of us as collaborative partners really bring that strength to the table. So I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've been doing.
And I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more about the collaboration. So, Colin, what was WorkSafe seeing that supported WorkSafe's involvement in the collaboration? I'm guessing there were things like claims data, there was a lot of intelligence we had, but also anecdotally and the stakeholders that we work with.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. And I think you've hit the nail right on the head there that, what we're seeing around mental health is a society-wide problem. Workplaces are absolutely not immune from those challenges. And we've seen that borne out in our own claims data, as you've referenced. So last year, for example, 14% of all claims related to a mental injury only. So a primary mental injury is now responsible for 14% of all claims. Based on current projections, we anticipate that could rise to as high as 33% over coming years. So, this is an emerging and rapidly escalating problem, and we simply, have to do more to address mental injury and mental health in the workplace, and we've got to address it at source. So, working through the collaboration, bringing the different perspectives, the different thinking, the different experiences to life, so that we can work with all workplaces in terms of promoting not just the prevention activity, but how, what opportunities are there for work to actually become somewhere where mental health can be enhanced. So don't just always look at the deficit. Where are the credits, and how can we put actions in place in workplaces to enhance and improve people's mental health?
Margot, what are the benefits that in your longevity, being there from the very beginning of this journey, what have you seen?
So I've certainly seen that we've had increasing numbers in attendance to the events and repeat people coming to events, to hear from experts that we have drawn from all over this fabulous country, but also internationally from time to time. And what they've been able to do is share with us some really practical guidance of what works, but what is also evidence-based. And I think when we look at, Vic Health as an example, as an internationally recognised health promotion agency, that evidence base is incredibly important to all three of the collaboration partners. I think the magic, though, has always happened when we've had workplaces on stage sharing their journeys with us and I know people don't necessarily like the word journey, but it is a journey of creating mentally healthy workplaces. It doesn't happen overnight, and it does, look at incremental steps along the way. So when we've had businesses, small, medium and large, across numerous industries, really sharing what's worked, what's been some of the challenges and how they've navigated those, and what have been the incredible outcomes. I think that's been, Kate, some of the magic that this collaboration has really brought to life. I think the other thing I would add is that we've had incredible feedback from Victorian workplaces that they actually want more. They want more practical guidance and support. The website for the Victorian collaboration has some terrific resources on there to help workplaces, including some vignettes and case stories. So there's plenty there for workplaces to really help them on their own journey, and it is very much their own journey of providing a mentally healthy and a positive work environment for all Victorians.
So many great benefits. Sandro, what about Vic Health? What are the benefits that you see from this collaboration?
Yeah, look, thanks very much. And I just want to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land I'm on today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and their elders past, present and emerging. I think it's the collaboration for us. Vic Health is Victoria's health promotion agency. We're really focused on keeping people and communities well for longer, and improving the health and wellbeing of all Victorians, regardless of their background, their income, their postcode. And so for a collaboration that focuses on workplaces, a place where so many Victorians spend most of their time, if not a substantive part of their week, it's an incredible, powerful platform to be able to support and work with Victorians, with Victorian workplaces, employers, employees to improve the health and well-being of a very large number of families and communities. I think in addition, Margot covered it very well, talking about the importance of collaboration and the highly complementary nature of the three organisations, the reach, the convening power, the focus on impact, and the track records of each in different spaces really combine nicely to deliver what I think is a really important collaboration focused on a key driver and determinant of health and wellbeing. And I would just say probably I'm a year into the role as Vic Health CEO, but looking out to the future, we can't help but realise that we're in the middle of coronavirus and the pandemic. And so not only has this been a really important collaboration for Vic Health over the last years, but I think looking out to the future, it's only going to become more important. Workplaces are changing, the nature of work is changing, what work means to individuals is changing, and with it the health that can and should result from healthy workplaces, I think will just become more critical.
Thank you, Sandro. And I think that's a really great segue then. Margot, I wanted to come to you. I know that data is really important to Superfriend and probably a key driver of this collaboration and the direction. This year, your annual Indicators of a Thriving Workforce report offers a look at the potential impacts of COVID-19 in the workplace. Can you tell us what you're seeing in this data? What story does that tell us?
So absolutely. This is a national survey. It's Australia's largest workplace survey on workplace mental health and wellbeing. And it's we have a representative sample of the Australian workforce, and this is across industry and location and so on. What we've seen this year in the results of the Indicators of a Thriving Workplace is that we have had an increase in the prevalence of mental health conditions. So at a national level, we've seen a 9% increase since last year in workers experiencing a mental health condition. And here in Victoria, we are seeing the similar numbers. So this is very much universal across all of Australia. Victorian workplace scores, though, are doing really well. So our national result out of 100 is 65.1 for this year, and that's up 2.4 points from last year. Victoria is equal to New South Wales, so the good old Victorian-New South Wales rivalry that is across sport and a range of things might continue in thriving workplaces. We're scoring 65.8 out of 100. I think the exciting thing for this collaboration is that Victorian has the highest leadership score. So we use 5 domains to measure the mentally healthy workplaces, and one of those domains is leadership. So Victorian has the highest score of any state or territory at 65.1, followed closely by New South Wales at 65. So we're only 0.1 ahead, but I think it bodes really well for the continued work of this collaboration, focusing on elevating the strengths. Now, 65.1 or the Victorian results, these are good, but they're not great. Only 5% of Australian workplaces are thriving, which are scoring 80 or above. And we know that things like regular leadership training in mental health and wellbeing have a massive ripple on the pond effect for not only worker wellbeing and health outcomes, but business outcomes across all of the thriving scores. So there are some really practical, implementable actions that workplaces need to take. The last thing I would say is that no matter how we cut the data, Kate, it is absolutely clear. The more actions that workplaces take, the better the scores overall, and that has productivity gains as well as wellbeing gains. So we really want to see more Victorian workplaces investing, and that doesn't have to be costly or timely, but investing and prioritising the well-being of their people, and we will see much better results across business outcomes, economic outcomes, as well as the social outcomes. So it's exciting times ahead, as Sandra and Colin have spoken to.
I guess building on that, Colin, if I come to you, the increasing rates of mental injury are a key priority for WorkSafe as well. And we house a lot of information that links into what Margot mentioned. What are WorkSafe specifically, though, doing in the prevention space to reduce harm to Victorian workers?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. And as you've rightly pointed out, we have two key roles at WorkSafe. The first is to reduce workplace harm, and the second is to improve outcomes for injured workers. So where workers are injured at work, part of our job is to help them return to work and return to health. And a key component of that is their mental health and well-being. So let's start at the front end. What are we doing right up front? I think, as Margot and Sandra have both mentioned, the role of the collaboration is really extended beyond our three organisations, because the different fora that we've been involved in tells us a really important story, and that is that workplaces want to be part of the solution. They're actually looking for practical ways to improve the mental health and well-being of their people, and that's a great start. But we know that business wants to be part of the solution. So we've designed a range of packages, and we're working obviously closely with the collaboration. And the first time that the three of us got together, because Sandra and I both became chief executive of our respective organisations around the same time, there was this incredible collaboration across the three of us, just in terms of the areas that we were focused on and the areas that we were excited about that could make the biggest difference. And one of those was that we know that workplaces want to be part of the solution. From WorkSafe's perspective, we've got a number of programs, probably the main one of which is a $50 million program called Work Well, which is designed to support and promote initiatives, pilot programs, but a system-wide approach to improving mental health and wellbeing in the workplace. We've got a Work Well toolkit. More than 7,000 businesses have now registered to utilise that toolkit, which helps them understand what's working well, what more they can do, and what are some of the practical steps they can take. I think because for many of us and for many workplaces and many employers, mental health can be a silent injury. It's not always an immediately visible injury in the same way that a physical or traumatic physical injury might be. So what are the early warning signs? What are the practical things I can look for? And then what are the practical steps I can take to help my workers not just avoid a mental injury in the workplace, but as Margot also touched on, how do I help them thrive? How do we get the settings that actually help our people be the very best that they can be? And how do we help them bring their very best selves to work? And not just for the economic and productivity benefit of that, because the culture in your workplace will be so much stronger, and the outcome and the benefit to all of your workers will be so much higher.
So quite a connection there around productivity, well-being, speaking a lot of the same language. I guess, Sandra, if I come to you now to look a bit more at programs like what Colin mentioned in Work Well, as well as the collaboration, I understand that you've looked at other types of programs, and specific, Sandra, for Vic Health. That's a focus on young people's health and wellbeing through your Reimagining Health Grants program. Could you tell us a little bit about that, but also link it to why is it so important to think about that next generation of emerging leaders?
Yeah, thanks very much. So, look, everyone has been so profoundly affected by coronavirus. Families directly affected by the virus itself, had family members taken ill with the virus. But we know that the indirect economic, cultural, social, and through those health implications of coronavirus and the pandemic, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that they really are unprecedented. To understand the nature of the impact that the current pandemic was having on the health and wellbeing of Victorians, and to ensure that the dollars and support and partnerships that we're driving as Vic Health are highly effective, but also returning the strongest value and health improvements for Victorians, we developed and deployed a statewide kind of rapid survey looking at the health and wellbeing of Victorians across the coronavirus lockdowns in March, April. And then we repeated it again about 3 weeks ago. And based on that evidence, we saw a number of really concerning, we saw a number of really concerning trends emerge. We also saw some silver linings, and we can talk about that if you want to as well. But the concerning trends that we saw emerging were dramatic increases in rates of social isolation, important precursor for mental health, a dramatic reduction in physical activity and community-based sport engagement, understandably because of the very necessary lockdowns and public health precautions being deployed across Victoria. We saw an increase in alcohol consumption, different patterns in different populations, but we did see some concerning increases. We saw a really big spike in food insecurity, in families being unable to put food on the table at all, and then another large group really struggling to put healthy food on the table because of the financial implications. These were just some of the things that we saw emerge through that rapid review. We also saw some very specific populations that we could understand were facing much greater barriers to health and wellbeing: single-parent households, regional Victorians, low-income Victorians on JobSeeker and JobKeeper, and those in bushfire-affected regions. But one group that came out very strongly again and again as facing significantly greater barriers in achieving and maintaining good health were young people, 0 to 25. And we know that, investing in young people, the flip side of that is investing in young people, you get lifelong returns. It's a very important place for prevention to be focusing its investments. So based on that real-time data, we then launched one of our largest grant rounds in Vic Health's history, a $2.5 million grant round focused on reimagining the health of communities across Victoria. It complements what the government has been doing by being very grassroots, very disseminated in its approach, and focused in on 3 of those critical areas that we could see Victorians were facing significant barriers to health around. So sport in a physical activity in sport in a restricted environment, food insecurity, and addressing, helping Victorians to get more Victorian families to get healthy food on the table and be able to afford to restock their cupboards, and social connection, rebuilding social connection. We also took some measures to make that. We know that many community groups that we would like to be applying for these sorts of grants are very busy at the moment. They've lost volunteers. They have huge demands on their time. So we've made it also very, very easy for people to apply. It takes less than 30 minutes to apply for up to $3,000, $10,000 or $50,000. And the result has been overwhelming. We've actually seen over 2,200 applications. We're not closed yet. And to give you a scale, that's about, it's many-fold more than $2.5 million. So it shows us there is enormous need, particularly among young people, and that will continue to be a big focus for us over the coming years in really supporting Victoria's young people through recovery and to make sure that they're able to achieve and maintain good health.
Thanks, Andrew. It sounds like a really great program. I'm going to move into another question now to look a bit more internally at your own organisations, and really love if you could briefly sort of share what have you been doing with your own staff to keep them mentally safe during the pandemic? Because you're all talking about these challenges external, but it's also within your workforces. So briefly, Margot, if I start with you, what are some of the things you're doing at SuperFriend that you can share today?
Thank you. Yes, there's an enormous number of things that we are doing, and I think the important thing is that we're constantly evolving and it's quite dynamic. And that is not only because, things are changing here in, obviously, Melbourne. We're just coming out of an extended period of some fairly heavy restrictions to keep us safe. And, it is about how do we transition through into this next phase. So we've really wanted to keep things fresh and moving and so on. I guess what has emerged very early in the culture inside SuperFriend is that we have always had this incredible culture of care. That caring culture has stood us in really good stead over times of change and challenge in the years. But, when you throw a global pandemic into the mix, a culture of care just is phenomenal. And I really sort of want to relay, my gratitude and appreciation to the incredible leadership team and the broader Superfriend team and board and our supporters to enable us to really bring that to life. I guess that allows for us to, and for me personally as a leader, to really role model vulnerability. Unprecedented is the word of the year, without a doubt. And I think we've got to recognise as leaders, we don't have all of the answers. We don't know when we're going to return to the office. We don't know when, different things are going to emerge. So that whole sense of vulnerability and authenticity in my leadership and in the leadership that I see across my organisation in all of the Superfriend team has been really something I've been incredibly proud of. We've done all sorts of things from, on a daily basis, catching up with team members, and I just pop into different teams and have 15 minutes of chatting. We do Friday afternoon get-togethers and drinks and so on virtually. We've done step challenges and fitness wellness challenges in winter. We've done all sorts of things across the team. I will go back to saying that, I think one of the great things is it's been team-led. I'm incredibly proud that we've got such motivated people inside Superfriend who recognise that this is something we share and we can share together to create that culture of care being, the glue that keeps us very, very strong and resilient. But it's also recognising there are tough times, and we've lent in and supported different team members at different times based on what they've needed, and done that with levels of sensitivity and making sure that they've got what they've needed around them. So lots of different practical things, but it's been a fantastic time.
Yeah, Margot, and I understand that you also took up a little hobby during the pandemic. Did you want to share that with us?
I did, but I will admit that I found it very, very challenging. So I thought, well, if I'm going to spend so many hours at home, I might as well learn something new. So for the first time ever, I picked up a guitar, and I've never played a guitar before. I had a few years learning the piano when I was about 6 or 7 years of age. So, my musical talents aren't that strong. I found it immensely challenging, and in fact, it's been one of these things that I've picked up and then put down again and picked up and put down again. So I would consider myself still at the very basics of the first 3 chords during this time, but it's been fun.
Thank you for being so vulnerable then too, Margot. Colin, if I can briefly come to you as we're coming into the Q&A time, what have you been doing within WorkSafe, building what Margot said at Superfriend to keep our people mentally safe, but also you yourself? How do you find time for your own personal wellbeing?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I think in terms of the organisations, it's similar to what Margot was describing. We've had a real focus on helping our people stay connected to each other, connected to the organisation, connected to our purpose, and connected to their teams. And so we've put a lot of support and infrastructure around our team leaders, our people leaders at a team level. I think, as Margot described, it's that team level connectivity that is so critically important. And a lot of the activity that's come out of that, we've had dance-offs, we've had bake-offs, we've had funniest pet competitions, all of the things that a lot of workplaces are doing, but have just allowed people to engage on a really fundamental level, which has been incredibly important, I think. From my own point of view, having joined the organisation in November, when the pandemic hit, and we moved to remote working early in March, and we have a distributed workforce right across the state, roughly 50% in Melbourne, 50% in regional Victoria. So we're now in a situation where there are different restrictions applying to different members of the same team, depending on where they live. So we've had to manage and try to balance that as well. But I was acutely aware that I'd been the chief executive and back at WorkSafe for all of 4 months when this really hit. And so not only did a large number of our employees not know me, they had no reason to have any faith or confidence in my ability to help navigate with the rest of the leaders, our organisation through these incredibly uncharted waters. So one of the first things that I did and we've adopted as an organisation. I send a daily email out to all staff every day. That was a good idea at the time. I think I've now done well over 100 of them. And I have no exit strategy. So even when we get back to working in the office, the response I've had to the emails has been really profound, and people write directly to me, pick up on something that I've said, and it's deliberately a mix of what's happening in the organisation, but also, as Margot said, sharing a bit of myself, because a lot of our employees didn't know me. They know a lot about me now, maybe more than they wanted to. They know all about my music tastes. They know about my 3 kids and my boy in year 12 and the 2 at university. And it's just been a great way, I think, for the organisation to feel connected. But it's also allowed me to stay connected to the employees and to help me re-energise each day just by penning, some thoughts. And again, as Margot said, on those days where it's been tough, sharing that with people. Being open and honest and transparent and saying, there are nights I lay awake because I'm not sure that the decision I'm making is the right decision. And I think that's really helped people also feel connected. And the last point, just quickly, Margot, I've also taken up guitar, but I've taken up bass guitar. I'm getting my rock god on. I'm very, very, very bad at it. But maybe this time next year, if we do a live performance, maybe we should do a live performance. A bit of Led Zeppelin never goes astray, I've found.
We may hold you to that. Sandra, I'm going to finish with you because I understand you have an exciting announcement to share with the viewers today and everybody in Victoria. It looks like it's a great initiative for the future to tie into some of the challenges we talked about. Can you tell us about the new Leadership podcast series in a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much. So the podcast series is a great example of the collaboration or the things that can come through this collaboration. Unfortunately, the podcast is not just the latest rendition of Stairway to Heaven by the 3 of us, although I think we might do a pivot and turn that into our podcast platform. I'm great at the tambourine, just putting that out there. But no, in all seriousness, the podcast series is entitled Leading Through Change, which is really about what the 3 of us have been talking about today. And so over the next 6 weeks, the series will capture the unique stories of 6 very different leaders and explores firstly the principles underpinning their leadership style. And secondly, then we focus on their considerations in the current environment, the pandemic, and ask the questions of them, of how they've led staff through turbulent times and how they've adapted their leadership style. So I'm sure we'll share a link, but it will be available wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast. So subscribe now. And if you do subscribe, I am promising on behalf of Colin and Margot a duet very soon as a musical bridge in the 2nd episode. I'll put that out there. There's no taking it back. So subscribe now.
Thank you so much, Sandro. We've reached the end of the webinar now. So I might, Margot, Sandra and Colin, I'd really love it though if there's one thing that you would like listeners to walk away with today and one thing they might continue to build on or do differently. What is that, Margot?
So there's a couple of things. I can never say just one. I would be certainly encouraging people leaders to provide as much certainty as they can. Our mental health, although we have demonstrated through this time we're very resilient, there is also a fragility, and to balance that with certainty and where you can be certain, I think is really one of the kindest things that we can be doing as people leaders and as colleagues. So that leads me into my second one, and that is be kind to ourselves and kind to others during this difficult time. And we will come through this together, well and truly.
Yeah, great messages. Colin, what's your one message to take away?
Connection and inclusion. I wish this was my concept. It's not, but it's called the Holy Trinity of Happiness. And that says I'm valued by my team is valued by my organisation, and my organisation is valued by my community. I think if we can strive for that, we'll go a long way.
And finally, Sandro.
Yeah, look, I think everything that's already been said, I would echo and support, and just say as well that we have been through a very difficult time, and we're at a bit of a crossroads. And I think there is an opportunity now, as we look out to the future, to build back to a healthier normal, not just to return to 2019 life. And so using this opportunity as leaders to have discussions with our teams, with our communities about, the way we want to be working in the future, the way we want to support one another, the way we want to deliver effectively in that new hybrid model. I think it's a really exciting discussion. It needs to be an inclusive discussion. And I think we can actually, come out of COVID-19, as I said, even stronger and more equitable than we went into it.
Yeah, amazing. What a positive way to end the webinar. So thank you, Colin, Margot and Sandra, for all of your responses this morning. It's been a great conversation, and no doubt you'll all continue as a collaboration to help the community and workplaces get back on track. Shortly, we're going to show you a list of all the contacts and resources that we've mentioned today. No doubt you're going to run off to use that podcast app to download the new series that Sandra mentioned. But if you have any further request for information, you can absolutely visit our website or call our advisory service to ask those questions. So thanks so much for tuning in today, and please have a great day.